The rain hadn't stopped since the day Ethan and his father arrived in the forgotten town of Grey Hollow. The sky hung low and grey, casting a heavy silence over cracked sidewalks and lifeless streets. Their new home stood like a mausoleum at the edge of town, a crooked Victorian house with peeling paint and windows like blind eyes. Locals glanced away when asked about it, offering only muttered warnings and pitying looks. Ethan, freshly 17 and mourning the recent loss of his mother, remained quiet as they stepped through the rusted iron gate. The house seemed to breathe, exhaling cold air that curled around his ankles like smoke. Inside, the house groaned with every step. Wooden floors creaked beneath their boots, and the walls were stained with watermarks that resembled twisted faces. Dust coated everything like snow, and cobwebs hung like lace in every corner. Ethan's father, a reserved man trying to restart their lives, seemed unaffected by the gloom. He muttered something about potential as he began unpacking boxes, but Ethan stood still in the foyer, staring at the grand staircase that curved up into shadows. Something about the house felt off, as if it had been waiting. Not empty, not abandoned, watching, listening. Somewhere deep within the walls, something stirred, and then he heard it, a whisper. It was soft, barely audible, but unmistakable. His name, Ethan, drawn out like breath on cold glass. He spun around, but no one was there. His father was still in the kitchen, cursing at a jammed drawer. Ethan chalked it up to the wind or his imagination. The house was ancient. Surely the walls just settled oddly. Still, a chill pressed against his spine, and he found himself rubbing his arms, despite the warmth of his hoodie. They spun, and he found himself rubbing his arms, despite the warmth of his hoodie. That night, unpacked boxes sat untouched in his new room. The sound of dripping water echoed endlessly from the bathroom pipes, and from the walls, faint breathing, like someone sleeping just behind the plaster. Ethan couldn't sleep. Shadows danced across his ceiling as tree branches clawed at the windows. He lay in bed with his eyes wide open, every creak and groan of the old house amplified in the dark. At exactly 3:07 a.m., a sharp knocking echoed through the hallway. Not at the door, but from within the walls. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. He sat up, heart pounding. "Dad?" he called out, but there was no answer. He crept out of bed and opened his door. Nothing. Just the sound of the wind outside and the distant ticking of the grandfather clock downstairs. Still, that whisper lingered in his mind. "Ethan." Light filtered in through a broken skylight, illuminating thick layers of dust. He uncovered a leather-bound journal on a desk. Its pages were blank except one, a name, scribbled in fading ink. Lena. That night, the house seemed even quieter than usual, as if it were holding its breath. Ethan brought the journal to his room, flipping through the empty pages, wondering who Lena was. A sudden gust of wind blew his bedroom window open, scattering the pages across the floor. A long bandit column floated on the pages. Alina was once again in the window open, scattering the pages across the... As he gathered them, he noticed something chilling. A new page had appeared. It wasn't his handwriting. It was a sketch. A woman's face. Pale, beautiful, with long black hair and eyes that seemed to follow him. He didn't remember drawing it. He stared at the page, heart racing, as another whisper drifted through the silence. "You found me." The next day, Ethan wandered into town, hoping to learn more about the house. At the local diner, he asked about the previous owners. The waitress stiffened, her smile fading. "That house, it's cursed," she whispered. "A girl died there, long ago, locked away by someone she loved." When he asked her name, the waitress simply said, "You don't want to know." But Ethan already did. That night, back home, he returned to the attic. The mirror was no longer covered. He stood in front of it, staring into its cloudy surface. His reflection looked off. And then, for just a second, another face appeared behind his. Ethan stepped back, heart racing, but when he turned around, no one was there. He stared back into the mirror, breath fogging the glass. The girl's face flickered again. This time, she smiled. A soft whisper filled the room, not from the walls, but from the mirror itself. "Don't be afraid, Ethan." He dropped the journal and stumbled back down the attic steps, slamming the door shut behind him. That night, as he lay in bed, he couldn't stop thinking about her, about Lena. Her voice echoed in his ears, soft and warm. She didn't sound like a monster. She sounded lonely. Over the next few nights, Ethan returned to the attic. Each time, Lena's voice grew stronger. She spoke to him through the mirror, whispering secrets about the house, about her death and the man who betrayed her. "He locked me away, but you won't," she said. Ethan began talking back. He told her about his mother, about how lost he felt. In Lena, he found someone who listened, someone who cared. He didn't tell his father. He wouldn't understand. The more he talked, the more real she became. And soon, she wasn't just in the mirror. He began to see her reflection in windows, in puddles, in his dreams. By the end of the week, Ethan didn't want to leave the house. Lena's presence was everywhere, comforting, yet terrifying. She whispered to him constantly, urging him to stay, to trust her. "I love you, Ethan," she said one night as the mirror shimmered like water. That same night, his father stormed into the attic, demanding he stop obsessing over imaginary ghosts. The mirror cracked. Lena screamed, a sound that shook the entire house. The walls trembled, dust rained from the ceiling, and every door slammed shut on its own. That was when Ethan knew. Lena wasn't just a ghost. She was awake now, and she wasn't going to let him go. The attic had become Ethan's sanctuary, quiet, shadowed, and hidden from his father's stern glares. He sat for hours on the dusty floor, sketching, always near the old mirror that now stood uncovered like a window into another world. The air around it was always colder, as if it breathed on its own. On the seventh night, he saw her clearly. Not a flicker, not a blur. Lena. Her reflection appeared, even when his didn't. Pale skin like porcelain, long black hair draping over a faded white dress, and eyes that stared into him like she knew every corner of his soul. She smiled and whispered his name again. Ethan froze, heart thudding. Her lips didn't move, yet he heard her soft, melodic, but undeniably real. "Ethan," she breathed. He stepped closer to the mirror. Her reflection didn't mimic his movements. She stood still, head tilted slightly, as if studying him. "You came back," she whispered. He looked around the attic, half expecting his father to be watching from the stairs, but he was alone. Lena's voice was different this time, less like wind, more human, intimate. He whispered back, barely audible, "What do you want?" Her answer came instantly. To be remembered, to not be alone anymore. He began to visit her nightly. They talked in whispers and glances. Ethan stopped questioning her existence. Each evening, she appeared clearer, more alive. She told him fragments of her story, how she'd loved a man who betrayed her, how he sealed her away when she discovered his secret. She never said his name. "Didn't love me enough," she murmured once, her eyes darkening. "But I think you will." Ethan didn't know what to say. He was drawn to her, enchanted by her sadness, her beauty, her mysterious presence. When she faded from the mirror, he felt hollow, desperate for her to return. Strange things began to happen in the house. Cold spots lingered in rooms Ethan had never entered. Lights flickered even though the wiring was new. Objects disappeared from one place and reappeared in another. His father grew irritable, blaming the stress of moving, but Ethan knew better. Lena was growing stronger. One night, Ethan found a new sketch in his journal, one he hadn't drawn. It was of himself, asleep, with Lena standing beside his bed, smiling. When he asked her about it, she only replied, "You looked peaceful. I wanted to be closer." Her voice echoed as if spoken inside his skull. His dreams began to blur with reality. He'd wake up hearing her laughter echoing down the hallway. In his sleep, he would find himself walking toward the attic, eyes half open. His father tried to intervene once, grabbing his shoulders and shaking him awake. "You're sleepwalking," he said, "and talking to someone. Who are you talking to?" Ethan didn't answer. How could he explain that the girl in the mirror was the only one who truly listened, the only one who cared, that she loved him, and it didn't feel like a ghost story? It felt real, like destiny, like she belonged with him. Ethan noticed she had stopped saying goodbye when she vanished from the mirror. Now, she said things like, "You'll never leave me, right? And no one can take you away." The attic door began to stick shut when he tried to leave. One time, he heard a deep scratching on the inside of the walls behind the mirror, as if long nails were carving something. He pressed his ear to the wood and heard whispering. Not just Lena's, but dozens of voices murmuring over each other in panic and pain. "Ignore them," she said. "They're jealous." His father became more desperate. "You need help," he shouted after catching Ethan speaking softly to the mirror with tears in his eyes. "There's nothing there." That night, Ethan ran to the attic and sobbed in front of the glass. "Why can't he see you?" Lena pressed her hand to the mirror. Her palm left a frost-like mark. "Because you're the only one who believes," she said gently. "And belief is everything, Ethan." Her tone shifted. "But he's trying to pull you away. We can't let that happen." Ethan's heart skipped. She'd said "we," as if they were already bonded, already one. The mirror had changed. Its surface now rippled like water when Ethan touched it. One night, Lena asked him to place his hand against hers. When he did, the glass grew warm. He felt a pulse beneath his fingers. "You're almost ready," she said softly, eyes glistening. "Soon, we can be together. Truly." Ethan didn't understand what she meant. "Together where?" he asked. Her lips curled into a smile, beautiful but distant. "You'll see. But first, you must trust me completely. Let go of the world outside. Let go of him." She meant his father. Ethan hesitated. That was the first time he felt afraid. His father tried to make him leave the house the next morning, calling a family friend to take him away. Ethan refused. "I can't leave her," he shouted. His father tried to force him into the car. The lights flickered violently and a window shattered. A low growl echoed from the attic. That night, Ethan locked his bedroom door and pushed furniture against it. Lena's voice soothed him through the mirror. "They always try to separate love. But not this time. I won't let him take you." Her reflection showed her arms outstretched. The mirror pulsed brighter. "Come closer," she whispered. "Let me in." That night, the attic light never turned off. Ethan's father heard him talking again. his voice calm, entranced. He crept up the stairs and opened the attic door. What he saw made him freeze. Ethan, standing in front of the mirror, arms outstretched, his fingers pressed to the glass like it was pulling him in. In the mirror's surface, Lena stood behind him, eyes no longer sad, but hollow, black, endless. As the father rushed forward, the attic door slammed shut behind him. From the hallway, only one sound echoed, a single word whispered from inside, "Mine." Rain had returned to Grey Hollow, and the house groaned louder than ever. The walls seemed to pulse with sound, whispers layered beneath creaks and sighs. Ethan was changing. He barely ate. His eyes were sunken, his voice quieter. At night, he'd whisper back to Lena for hours, his hand resting on the mirror like a lifeline. That evening she told him a secret. "There's something hidden beneath us," she whispered, "proof of what he did to me." Her tone was sharper now, commanding. "You must see it." When Ethan asked where, Lena just smiled faintly and said, "Follow the cold." And when he did, the house responded. The air grew dense as he walked, breath forming clouds despite the summer heat. His bare feet padded across the creaky floorboards toward the basement, an area his father had sealed shut the day they moved in. Lena's voice echoed faintly. "He buried it." Ethan pried the rusted chain off the basement door and descended the rotted stairs, flashlight flickering. Cobwebs clung to his face, and the smell was thick, dirt, mildew, and something older. The flashlight beam trembled as he reached the bottom. The stone walls were cracked, weeping moisture. In the far corner, the air was still, unnaturally quiet. And then he saw it. A hatch in the floor. The hatch was hidden beneath broken boards and rotten boxes. It groaned when he lifted it, revealing a crawl space just big enough for him to slip through. Earth clung to the wooden beams overhead. As Ethan crawled forward, the smell of decay grew stronger. His flashlight flickered, then died. Complete darkness swallowed him, and he froze. For a moment, he considered backing out. Then her voice came, soft and sweet. "You're so close, Ethan. You're the first to find me." Encouraged, he pushed forward, his hand brushing against something. Fabric, then bone. His fingers trembled as he uncovered a torn dress. Beneath it, human remains, curled as if asleep, a shriveled arm, fingers curled toward the ribs. The skull was small, feminine, the jaw frozen mid-scream. Her bones had been bound by rusty wire, almost ritualistic. Scratched into the dirt wall were symbols, unfamiliar but violent. Ethan stared in silence, heart hammering. This wasn't a myth. This wasn't grief or madness. Lena had told the truth. Someone had buried her here like a secret, like trash. He whispered her name, and the air shifted. A rush of cold swept through the space. Then, the faintest brush on his cheek, like a kiss. "You found me," Lena whispered again. "Now you see what love meant to him." The crawl space began to shake. Dirt rained down in clumps as groaning echoed above. Ethan scrambled out, dragging the skull and torn dress with him. As he rose into the basement, he turned and saw something etched into the stone behind him. Fresh scratches that hadn't been there minutes before. "You belong to her now." His breath caught. The air smelled like blood. He climbed the basement stairs 2 at a time, skull still clutched in his shaking hands. As he emerged into the kitchen, every light bulb burst in unison. The mirror upstairs shattered loudly, and Lena's voice, no longer calm, screamed, "You saw what he did! You won't leave me!" His father rushed into the kitchen, saw the skull, and froze. "What the hell is that?" he shouted. Ethan tried to explain, about the body, the crawl space, Lena. But his father only grew angrier. "You need help!" he yelled, grabbing the remains and storming toward the yard. "This ends now!" He intended to call the police. Ethan pleaded, begged him to stop, but his father refused to listen. As he stepped outside to burn the bones, the wind howled unnaturally. A sudden force slammed the door shut behind him. Inside, the temperature plummeted. Lena was furious. "He'll take me away again," she hissed. "Like before. Do you want that, Ethan?" Ethan collapsed onto the floor, ears ringing as Lena's whispers filled the house from every direction. She was in the walls, in the pipes, in the wind outside. "Bury me again, and I'll never be whole," she said, her voice sharp, desperate. Upstairs, the attic door swung open on its own. He ran to it, the journal and mirror both cracked and smoking, the pages flipped wildly, finally stopping on one that hadn't existed before. A sketch of his father engulfed in flame, screaming. Ethan stared at it in horror. It was happening. Lena was changing. Love had become possession. Devotion had become something darker. Through the window, Ethan saw his father at the edge of the yard, trying to ignite the bone, but the fire wouldn't start. The lighter sparked and died. Thunder rumbled as black clouds gathered unnaturally fast above the house. Then the rain came, but not clean rain. It was thick, dark, oily. The yard filled with it, soaking the bones. His father screamed, backing away, and then the soil shifted. A pale hand burst from the earth, clawing skyward, followed by the rest of Lena's form, twisted, wet, smiling, with eyes hollow as voids. He looked toward the window, toward Ethan. "I'm coming home," she whispered inside his head. Ethan screamed for his father to run, but it was too late. The door slammed open, and the wind tore through the house like a hurricane. Lena didn't walk. She glided. Wet footprints formed behind her, even though her feet didn't touch the ground. Ethan stumbled backward, crying, but she stopped in front of him. "You brought me back," she said softly. Her voice wasn't angry anymore. It was full of something else. Longing. Hunger. "We belong together now. No one else matters." Behind her, the mirror rebuilt itself slowly, its shards dragging across the floor like metal teeth. She extended her hand. "Come, Ethan. Let's finish what he started." The bones had only been part of it. Her soul remained trapped until someone loved her enough to uncover the truth. Now, with her story unearthed and her killer long dead, she was free. But freedom didn't mean peace. Ethan's father was gone. Whether taken by storm or shadow, he didn't know. All Ethan knew was that Lena was with him, everywhere. The walls no longer whispered. They breathed. The mirrors no longer reflected him alone, and the final sketch in his journal showed two figures, hand in hand, standing before the house as it bled from the windows. Ethan whispered her name, and the house whispered back, "Forever." The house had changed. It no longer creaked like an old home settling. It growled. The walls pulsed with a heartbeat that wasn't Ethan's. Every mirror now showed Lena, not just the attic one. She watched him constantly, smiling softly from glass, puddles, polished metal. "You set me free," she would say. "Now, let me stay inside you." Her voice was in his thoughts even when he wasn't near the attic. Sometimes he spoke back without realizing. Other times, he found himself staring at his reflection for hours. His father was gone. No police report, no news, just silence. But Ethan knew. Lena had made him disappear. Sleep became difficult. When Ethan did drift off, his dreams were filled with flashes, Lena standing behind him, whispering things he couldn't understand. He would jolt awake to find his hands covered in dirt, or holding something unfamiliar. Nails, scraps of faded ribbon, a clump of black hair not his own. One night, he awoke in front of the mirror, hand pressed to the glass, whispering her name. But the voice that came from his mouth wasn't entirely his. It was softer, layered, echoing like two voices stacked together. He backed away in terror, heart pounding, but the mirror didn't reflect fear, it reflected satisfaction. He stopped attending school. He didn't eat unless Lena reminded him. The outside world blurred like fog on a cold window. Only she remained sharp, vivid. "We're becoming one," she said, each word delivered with intimate weight. "They took everything from me. But now I have you. You'll never leave me, Ethan." His memories became unstable. Sometimes he'd look in the mirror and see himself younger, other times older. Days bled into nights. The attic was no longer a room. It was a womb. Every time he entered it, the lights dimmed, the floorboards sighed beneath him. The walls hummed with her name. Sometimes Ethan would hear knocking, not from the front door, but inside the house. The sound came from the floor, the ceiling, the very core of the structure. When he opened closets or cabinets, he found strange items. An old doll, missing its face. A black and white photo of a man whose eyes had been scratched out. Pages from journals that weren't his. They felt planted, placed for him to discover. He began to understand. Lena was showing him the story not told in words. She wasn't just a ghost anymore. She was the house. And she was slowly becoming him from the inside out. He tried once to leave, packed a bag and reached the front door, but the knob turned red hot under his palm, burning his skin. The lights all went out. In the dark, Lena's voice was no longer calm. It was everywhere, urgent and frantic. "Don't go! You promised! You said forever!" Her shriek shattered the window panes. The mirror in the hallway burst, glass slashing across his cheek. Blood ran down his face and dripped onto the floor, and the house absorbed it. A stain sizzled and disappeared. He looked into the broken mirror and saw her reflection not beside him, but wearing his skin. From that night on, his body didn't always feel like his. He'd lose hours, wake up in places he hadn't entered. Once, he found himself standing at the foot of the attic stairs, clutching a kitchen knife he didn't remember grabbing. His journal was filled with pages he never wrote, pages declaring love, marriage, eternity. One entry simply read, "Our hearts are now one, he breathes me." His voice changed subtly too, slower, echoing Lena's cadence. He smiled less and whispered more. When he looked in the mirror, sometimes it was Lena's eyes staring back. Her smile, her sadness, her hunger. Thunderstorms became common, always circling above the house, but never striking. During one stormy night, Ethan looked out the window and saw people standing in the yard. Dozens of them, silent, unmoving. Their faces were blurred, indistinct. Lena whispered, "They tried to leave me too. Now they wait." Lightning flashed, and the yard was empty. But the muddy footprints remained outside the door. Ethan began to realize the house had claimed others before him, maybe hundreds. He wasn't the first to love her, he was just the first to stay willingly. And now, his will wasn't entirely his own, it belonged to her. The town seemed to forget about him. No one came knocking, no one asked questions. It was as if Grey Hollow had learned long ago to leave the house alone. The silence outside matched the madness inside. Ethan no longer resisted her. When Lena spoke, he obeyed. He began talking to her out loud, laughing when no one was there, repeating her words back like prayers. His hands sketched endless portraits of her, sometimes beautiful, other times monstrous. He didn't sleep in a bed anymore. He slept beside the mirror, curled up like a child beneath it. Each night she whispered lullabies that turned into screams. The possession wasn't dramatic. No spinning heads, no levitation. It was slow, intimate. A smile held too long, a voice that didn't match the lips, a hand that moved before thought. Ethan still looked like himself, but Lena now controlled his every choice, his every breath. When he cried, she cooed. When he resisted, she punished. But most days, he didn't resist anymore. He had nothing to return to, no father, no mother, no world that understood him. He had nothing to return to, no father, no mother, no world that understood him. She had filled the cracks in his soul with herself. "You don't have to be alone anymore," she would say. "Just give me everything." And in the end, he did. He stood before the mirror one final time, the house pulsing gently around him. Rain pattered on the roof like fingers drumming. His journal lay open behind him, its final page blank. He placed his hand on the mirror. Her hand appeared. Their fingers touched. "I'm ready," he whispered. The glass shivered, and then neighbors whispered when they passed by, noting how the curtains never moved and the windows remained dark. No one had seen Ethan in weeks. His school reported him missing, but no one searched. They remembered what had happened to others who entered that house. The house itself looked older now, like it had aged overnight, its wood darkened, warped. Ivy clung tightly to its frame as though the earth tried to pull it back, and in the attic window, at times, a face appeared. Pale, smiling, watching. Inside, time had folded in on itself. Dust no longer settled. Clocks stopped ticking. The rooms held the scent of old roses and rotting leaves. Ethan no longer walked the halls as he once had. He drifted, or perhaps floated. His steps made no sound. His breathing barely stirred the air. The mirror in the attic now stood in the center of the room, larger than before. Its frame had grown, gnarled, like bone, and inside it, Lena stood behind Ethan's reflection, her arms wrapped around him. They no longer spoke with words. Their thoughts intertwined like vines. They were one. Inseparable, eternal. One evening, a knock came. Not from inside, but the front door. A girl from town, curious and foolish, pushed her way through the gate and stepped onto the porch. The knob turned for her, though she didn't twist it. As she entered, she called out, "Hello!" Her voice echoed too loudly, as if the house were empty and infinite. The lights flickered to life. The door closed behind her. The house shifted. It had awakened again. Upstairs, the mirror glowed faintly. Ethan opened his eyes. So did Lena. "Another?" she asked. "No," he replied quietly. "A guest. For the wedding." The girl wandered into the parlor, dust kicking up around her steps. The portraits on the walls seemed to change as she passed, eyes watching, faces shifting subtly. She felt colder with each step. Somewhere, a music box began to play, a soft, tinny lullaby that didn't stop. In the attic, Ethan donned clothes he hadn't worn in years, an old suit, wrinkled but clean. Lena wore white, the dress she'd died in, now restored and radiant. They stood before the mirror as if it were an altar. "She will witness our vows," Lena said. "She will see love eternal." Ethan nodded. "She won't remember. They never do." The guest never saw the attic door open. She never noticed the light above her head slowly dim. The last thing she remembered was hearing someone whispering her name from upstairs. Then darkness swallowed her. When she awoke, she was outside, lying in the grass, her memory fogged. She stumbled home with no answers, only a strange unease she could never explain. Inside the attic, The mirror shimmered. Ethan and Lena stood hand in hand. "It is done," Lena said. "Now we can rest." But Ethan hesitated. Something deep inside him stirred, a flicker of who he once was. "Are we still us?" he asked. Lena's smile faded for just a moment. "You are mine," she whispered. "Isn't that enough?" Ethan's hands trembled slightly. The attic walls pulsed once. He looked into the mirror and saw himself, just himself, for the first time in weeks. The silence was deafening. The house waited. Lena tilted her head, her eyes wide, unblinking. "Do not betray me," she said. But it wasn't anger. It was fear. The lights flickered. The house creaked. Somewhere a door groaned open. Choice had returned. But love twisted is still love. And Lena had never truly left him. She reached for Ethan's hand. Her touch was cold, but grounding. "You don't have to choose," she whispered. "You already did. You stayed." Ethan looked down at their intertwined fingers, then up at the mirror. This time their reflections were fused. One face, half Ethan, half Lena. The attic grew darker. The mirror's surface rippled, revealing scenes behind it, bodies, shadows, other souls trapped in glass. They were not the first, but they would be the last. "Till death do us part," Ethan murmured. "And after," Lena added. Their voices became one. Lightning struck outside, illuminating the attic in a blinding flash. When it faded, the mirror stood still again, empty. No Lena, no Ethan. Only the faint echo of a wedding song, playing from the music box that no one wound. The house sighed. The vines grew thicker. No one knocked again. The town forgot entirely. Seasons passed, and the roof sagged with time, but the mirror remained untouched, clean, waiting. If someone dared enter and looked into it, they wouldn't see themselves. They would see the couple, frozen in their final embrace, eyes wide open, watching, smiling, waiting for someone to say, "I do." In time, the house became legend. Children dared each other to throw rocks at the attic window. Teens filmed videos outside, but never stepped in. Locals called it the vow house. They said lovers who entered together never came out. That at midnight, you could hear two voices reciting wedding vows from the attic. No one remembered Ethan's name or Lena's, but the mirror remembered. And one day someone else will find it. Alone, broken, looking for something to love. And when they do, the glass will ripple again, the door will unlock, and the house will breathe once more, because love, real love, never dies.